My name is Jomari. I'm a senior consultant, a trainer, coach, and also a director of Powering You Training and Coaching Philippines. And we would like to welcome you to Powering You's complimentary webinar, which is Business Development and Relationship Management in a Virtual World. I'd like to introduce our speaker. Mari Mercado, or Jomari, has over 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, and consulting for various industries, spanning finance, insurance, and telecommunications, both in the Philippines and in the ASEAN South Asia region, where he has held several leadership positions and 12 years of experience in the IT and the business process management industry. Jomari was the National Technology Officer for Microsoft and the President and CEO of Information Technology and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP. He was the Business Development Director for Convergys Corporation. He also worked for IBM Philippines, Coca-Cola Bottlers Philippines, and Permastress Industries Incorporated. He is a consultant specializing in sales, marketing, and customer relations. He is also a certified executive coach. Jomari took a bachelor's degree in science in industrial engineering at the University of the Philippines. Everyone, let us all please welcome our speaker for this evening's webinar, Mr. Mari Mercado.
Thank you very much, June. Thank you for the warm introduction. As June mentioned, I have spent over 30 years in sales and marketing, and a good 10 of those years involved dealing with US customers on a remote basis. As such, this work from home new normal that we are in today is not exactly new to me, albeit not forced on me via virus. Tonight, I'd like to share with you some thoughts, learnings that I have gained through the years, and hopefully help you navigate through this new normal. So, managing business relationships, especially here in Asia, the personal touch is vital, right? However, the situation today that we're in forces us to socially distance ourselves from our customers. In the past, the way you develop this or nurture these relationships would be to invite your customer to lunch, have a cup of coffee, or even a round of golf. Well, in the last 90 days, these have become things of the past. So how do you do this today? To help us get the right perspective, let me share with you the signature selling method that we used in IBM. But don't worry, I'm not going to go through the cycle with you. I'm just using this to simply show you that in almost every step of a selling process, you need to interact with your customer. From identifying his business needs, to developing his options, helping him find the solution, and implementing it. So you must be thinking, how do I do this now? The best way to look at it is from a saying that I saw in a t-shirt that I bought in Thailand. It said, same but different. What it means is, yes, you still need to go through the steps. Yes, you still need to build that relationship through the selling cycle. And yes, you have to approach it in a slightly different manner. Let's start with building rapport. No handshakes, no exchanging of business cards, no glass of wine to break the ice. Your option is Zoom, WebEx, Teams, Google Meets, or other similar forms of technology. As much as possible, use the video option when you are in a call. This allows you to see your customer. More importantly, gauge his interest and reactions to what you say. Oh, but an important reminder, do get your customer's approval to use video. Some people are just not comfortable with it. In addition, there are some people who become very conscious about how they look in the video. And when you are in a call, you might end up looking at yourself and see how you look like or project. A good tip is to close or minimize your own video window so that all you see is the customer. That way you focus on him and your conversation. And by the way, when you're in a face-to-face scenario, you don't see yourself, right? Unless there's a mirror behind your customer. So keep it that way so that your focus is the customer. One question I got is, how do you develop rapport with a new prospect when you have never met that person before? Well, in this case, rapport is a second step. The first one is to get your prospect's interest. And get him interested enough to engage in a conversation. This can best be achieved through an email where you can provide the brief, and I mean brief, view of your value proposition and an offer to get on a call so you can discuss this further. Once you're in a call, you know that you have the prospect's attention, so you can start building the rapport. A more effective tool in building these types of contacts would be to have a common friend introduce you to the prospect. You can request your friend to introduce you to your desired prospect. This provides you with the advantage of being endorsed by someone the prospect already knows. Second, set a time limit to your call. Always assume your customer is a busy person. And you should respect this by keeping the call within the time agreed upon. Ask short, open-ended questions so you can elicit as much information in the time that you have. Do not ask compound questions. A very, very common mistake. You end up piling one question on top of another before waiting for an answer. One question at a time, please. And learn to listen without interrupting. In a face-to-face meeting, that's easy to adjust. But in a video call, there's a tendency to talk over each other. You see this a lot, right? I mean, even if you haven't experienced this personally, all you need to do is watch CNN or ANC and you see that happening. Technical glitches and differences in internet quality may cause delays in your customer hearing your question, so allow for that gap. Your customer may be sharing his challenges in the current situation. So listen, empathize, and address this. A lot of people don't realize that messaging, whether it's SMS, Viber, WhatsApp, is a great tool to build rapport. But make sure it doesn't become junk text. I encountered a salesman before who first sent me the text, "Good morning," then sent me another message, "How are you today?" I never got this real message because at that point, I consider these messages as junk. Go straight to your point and send the message across clearly, simply, and in the least amount of words. And please, read the previous messages. Okay, the history of your chat. It's very, very irritating when you get asked a question, when you ask a question, and that question had already been answered in a previous chat. And please be mindful of punctuation and grammar. Be professional in your messages. Next, you need to engage your customers in their most compelling issues. Okay? Talk about what they care about. What's in it for him? It is not about you. Brainstorm on how you can work together to propose ideas to address his issues. Now, this also happens in a face-to-face scenario. But in a video call, it becomes more relevant as you need to show the customer that you care. Your customer, you want to sell him something. Come on, we know that. But you need to make sure it's relevant to him. I have seen some calls where the seller says, okay, but really is projecting, I don't really care. Can we talk about my product? Focus on building trust. One call, one email, one text message at a time. In the book, The Trusted Advisor by David Meister and Charles Green, they developed a trust equation. It's composed of 4 elements. Credibility. It has to do with the words you speak. I trust what he says, right? So I will listen to him. Reliability. It has to do with the actions that you take. If he says he will deliver tomorrow, I know he will. Intimacy. The comfort, the safety, security that your customer feels when he entrusts you with something. It's like, I can trust you with the information. It's never violated my confidentiality. And finally, self-orientation. It refers to your focus. yourself or the customer. I can't trust him. His only concern is what he gets out of this. Or he's not really paying any attention. The trust equation, which Meister and Green developed, is the sum of your credibility, reliability, and intimacy divided by your self-orientation. The result is your trustworthiness. Developing this with your customer is hard enough in a face-to-face scenario. It's much more difficult, but extremely important virtually. So how do you develop this remotely? Let's talk about credibility. You know, I had a customer who had a reputation in the industry, and by the way, he loved to have that reputation of being a very difficult person. But as I got to know him better, it became clear. As a customer, he feels it's not his job to educate me. That is my job to educate him. I learned that I need to do my homework and prepare for every call and admit to what I do not know when I don't. I ask smart questions in our conversations and learn to avoid trick questions. You know that? You know those questions where you ask the question because you already know the answer, just to show how smart you are. Boy, he saw through that very quickly. In a virtual world, you can build your credibility by preparing your questions ahead of time. In addition, if you know what he wants, if you know that he wants more detailed information, you can email them to him before the start of the call. This shows that you are focused on him and his needs. One more tip. It is tempting to send materials, as many materials and brochures that you want to send, because it's so easy. Just remember, it is also so easy for your customer to press the delete button. If you're going to send materials, make sure your email contains a summary of what the emails contain, the materials contain, and how it is relevant to his needs. Don't be surprised. If you do it correctly, he will be the one reaching out to you and asking for a meeting. Reliability. This same customer was a stickler for delivery. Build your reliability by delivering on what you promise. In a virtual world, that is even more apparent. Make sure that when you say, I will send you the materials, send it when you said you will send it. And learn your customer's vocabulary. In the case of my customer, when he says 9 a.m., it's 9 a.m., not 9:15. I learned to stick to that. And when I say, I'll send you the materials by the end of day, it has to be the end of his day, not mine. So I make sure I send it before 5 p.m. In today's setting, that can be more apparent. As I said, he has more time on his hands. And it's so easy to check exactly what time you sent it. That customer of mine, he's that type. He's the type of person who will actually look at the timestamp of the email before he opens it. Because if he sees that you are a minute late, you'll immediately get a response from him saying, you were late. However, if you're meticulous about your promises and meticulous about fulfilling it, you build that reliability with the customer. I know I improved my reliability rating with him when he stopped following me up on my commitments. I know that he knows that I will do what I said I will do in the time that I said I'll do it. And yes, it is okay to say, I cannot do that in the time that you want. It is better to say that than to commit and fail. But definitely, if you build that reliability, you get more leeway from the customer to say no. Finally, take responsibility for your mistakes. An error in an invoice may be caused by accounting. But as far as the customer is concerned, that's your error. Own it, fix it, build that credibility. The third element is intimacy. The sense of security that you build with your customer when he's interacting with you. Once you develop this, your conversations can go beyond work, but include ambitions, goals, talking about his good and bad days, fears, wishes, hopes, frustrations. Learn to be vulnerable and react to his emotions. This takes time. And finally, there's self-orientation. Your customer will know, especially in a virtual world, whether you care or not. Again, make sure he feels it's all about him. Share your agenda prior to and at the start of your call. Be transparent. Answer questions as they are asked. And check with words like, "This is making sense." Make sure you listen to the question and you answer that question. Again, a pet peeve. I always have this where I ask a question and the answer is totally different. I always go back, say, "Can I say it again? Please listen to my question." Okay? Also, because of the time limitation, make sure you keep track. And then you say something like, we have 15 minutes left. Is there something that you need to discuss in the remaining time that we have? My favorite is when a person I'm talking to says, "I know what you mean." Avoid that. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. But let your customer decide that. It's about him, not you. These words from Maya Angelou best summarizes why trustworthiness is important. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Remember that difficult customer I talked about? Well, years later, I was assigned to our regional office in Singapore. But every time he would have a problem with our company, he will call me in Singapore to ask me to do something about it. It was no longer my job. But because of the trust that was developed, his comfort zone was that once he tells me about it, he knows that the problem will be solved. And that really feels good. Oh, by the way, he still calls me up to today. I'm no longer with that company. He's no longer with my customer, but he still calls me. Be mindful of your customer's time. I already mentioned this twice. Let me reinforce it again. Always start the call with small talk. However, don't let small talk overstay its welcome. He may end up using all your time talking about what new dish, what ubi pandesal he learned to bake, or the latest that I've seen on social media is this baked sushi. You might end up spending all your time talking about this and just wasted the customer's time. So share your agenda and keep it tight and focused. And again, make allowance for technology glitches. Today, if I have time, the time that I have is 30 minutes. I plan for a discussion that fits 20 minutes. That gives me leeway for questions, clarifications, and also those things that we hear nowadays. "Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute." "Oh, I lost you there for a moment." Or, "Sorry, my dog is going crazy today." And I can't stress this enough. Start on time. Not only, a friend told me once, being on time is late. Being there 15 minutes is on time. Not only have I tried to live this in several occasions, guess what? I managed to get 15 extra minutes with my customer since he saw us already there. Next, build a communication plan. Let your customer know what you want to achieve and how you intend to communicate this. Make him feel comfortable about the means of communication, whether it's chat, email, video, phone, landline, if they still use a landline. Try to understand this level of comfort with technology. Does he know what Dropbox is? Google Drive? Cloud? Does he know how to use collaboration tools? You can maximize technology, but make sure your customer is okay with it. After each touch point, summarize your discussion via an email to ensure you got all the points covered. Take note of action items. Commit to those action items as to how you will do it, when you will do it, and when it will be accomplished. It helps with the customer's permission, of course, that during your call, what you do is you record the call, because you can do that. And by doing that, you're not distracted with taking notes while the call is ongoing, right? And then afterwards, then send the email, summarize the points, and it gives you an opening for pursuing next steps with that same customer. Continually exceed your customer's expectations. Let your customer know ahead of time. What do you plan to deliver and when? Follow up with him to ensure, are you okay with the plan? You may be so confident and comfortable with it that you had such a good plan. Turns out he wasn't happy with it. Encourage feedback. But make sure that when you encourage feedback, you act on it. What is the point in asking for feedback if it's not going to be acted upon? And pay attention to details, especially now. Everything is recorded, everything is in a chat message or in an email. It's so easy to find and catch errors. A pet peeve of mine, another one. The deadline had already passed, and I sent a follow-up request. What happened to my request? And it's only then at that point that my salesman apologizes and informs me, oh, I'm sorry, I need more time. Don't wait for that message. If you cannot deliver on time, advise your customer in advance that you will not be able to do so. He may not be happy, but guess what? He's going to be a lot unhappier if you don't do this and then you're late. But make sure that when you do this, you have a new commitment on when, and then make sure you deliver them. Okay? Finally, very, very important, it's, again, not what you do, not what you said, but how you make your customer feel. Treat your customers as individuals. I like this line. Be a person, not an email address. Be personal. Put your personality in your communications. Your customer wants to feel that he's being treated as a person, not a source of revenue. In a virtual world, this has an even stronger impact with people. You can't even treat him to lunch. Oh, you could have a virtual coffee with your customer, right? Once you've developed that relationship. But in a virtual world, it's so difficult if you don't have that personal touch with your relationship. So the global pandemic has brought about so many changes in our lives, forcing us to socially distance ourselves from our customers. I know we're all optimistic that one day the virtual Beatles can once again come together to cross Abbey Road. I look at this crisis in the same way that the Chinese wrote this. Guai Ji. It's composed of two characters, Guai representing danger, the other one representing opportunity. In the business development world, we're lucky that technology and tools are available today that allows us to convert these dangers and focus on opportunities with our customers. We just need to use it correctly and wisely. Thank you for your attention and good luck to your customers. I think we have time to take questions.
Thank you very, very much, Jomari. Again, as always, a pleasure to be listening to you, a pleasure to be learning something new and refreshing. Admittedly, some of the things that I've heard, I have actually seen you do. Something that I have not shared with the body as I was presenting, as I was introducing you, is the distinct privilege of having worked with you personally and face-to-face in at least several years during our time in the BPO space. So we'd now like to open the floor for questions. And while we're waiting for them, Jomari, to raise their questions via chat, and they can do that, allow me please, Jomari, to just throw one at you. Something that is reminiscent of the time that we had spent developing clients, successfully winning them. And this was before a lot of the digital and virtual tools for communication and social media were not as multi-platform as they are today. And so I go back to your trust equation, Jomari. Something that's of interest to me is that how you manage to actually establish rapport with individuals who are overseas without the benefit of video most of the time, as a matter of fact, more on mobile phone or teleconference, so much so that the first time you actually have a face-to-face, the ice has been broken, so to speak, and they have warmed up to you. So there must be some trade secrets there, Jomari. It's either the trust equation that you talked about eloquently, or somewhere in the building rapport. May I ask that question, Jones?
Actually, there's no secret. The secret sauce is really who is your customer and where is he coming from. In the BPO space, the customers that I was dealing with, we used to call them clients, right, to differentiate them from the customers.
Yes.
The clients that we were dealing with had one idea in mind. I need to outsource my business and I want to know where I'm going to send it. That's where it's coming from. So the rapport that you build is specifically in that area. They're not familiar with the Philippines. Easily 90% of the clients, over 5,000 people that I had hosted in the 9 years that I was with Convergys, 90% of them have never been to the Philippines.
Right.
More than 60% of them have never been outside the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So where they're coming from right away is, okay, the first thing that you need to do is they need to have this comfort level that the Philippines is a good place to visit. That the Philippines has the talent pool that they need in order to support their business. And that's where you focus on the rapport. All the other technical stuff in terms of operations, training, quality control will come afterwards because that's part of running the business. But you first need to get them to step into the country. So that is the rapport building that I do on the phone. Well, first of all, it's very interesting, but if I had $1 for every time somebody will say, oh, you speak very good English. Where'd you learn that? Right? So that breaks the ice right away. And if not, there are clients who are not as easy to talk to or not, they don't open up very quickly. I really resort to anecdotes, stories, talk about other clients' experiences so that they feel that they're not alone and they're not experiencing it alone.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Jomari, in some of these conversations, you bring testimonials of other customers as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And testimonials are that's why I remember the other thing that I mentioned earlier, if it's a prospect, find somebody that you both know. Because there's already an endorsement when there's somebody that you know.
Okay. You just now, Jomari, you mentioned communication as important, and how you know that time during the initial conversation might be short. You are trying to create a business development lead. You are probably meeting the customer for the first time. So how important is clear, concise, pointed, or laser-focused opening statements or conversations to build rapport, at the same time ensure that the customer feels that it's not a waste of his or her time?
Oh, it's absolutely important. As I said, it's always be mindful of your customer's time, right? And it always helps that at the start of the call, after the hello, how are you coping with the pandemic, etc., you go with the reason why we're having this call today. The objective of our call is.
Okay.
So make sure, what's very, very important is that you have a specific objective for the call.
Okay.
Not a general one, a specific one. And
Okay.
you stick to that objective. If the conversation starts to veer away from that, you can always go say, that's very interesting, and can I tackle that in a separate conversation? Let's go back to our agenda.
Okay.
It is your role to always keep on bringing back your customer to what is in the agenda. But by the way, maybe halfway through the call, the customer decides, well, that's not my agenda today because something happened yesterday and this is more important to me now. Learn to be flexible. Learn to switch.
Okay.
Right? But of course, you're not going to be as comfortable because you're not as prepared.
Right. Jomari, sorry, but we have a flood of questions here, so let me just shoot them off. I'm not sure that you can see them, so I'll just read them off. Here's one. There's a lot of clients who don't mind their emails, especially some proposals or any related sales concerns, because they are accustomed to face-to-face transactions. How can they deal with this situation?
Remember when I talked about the communication plan? So you have to get into an agreement with the customer on how you're going to communicate with them. If you say that you're going to send it via email, make sure that your customer says, okay, I will get it via email. Get approval or support. If not, then, well, maybe I do have to print the proposal and then use Grab or Lala Move to ship it over to your house. You have to be flexible. But the thing about email is the reason why a lot of customers hate email is because 90% of the time it's junk. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Okay. Number two, you attach 25,000 attachments to your email. Okay. He won't have time to look at them. Okay? If you're going to put some attachments, fine. But in the email itself, you'll say, Dear June, as per our conversation, please find the following. And then identify what is contained, what is the key message in each attachment, and more importantly, how is it relevant to his needs, to what he wants. Then you'll get him to, even if he just reads the email and doesn't open the attachments, you got your message across.
Okay. Thank you, Jomari. I hope that the question was answered to your satisfaction. There are 3 more here at least that I'd like to read very quickly. What if there is an unexpected power interruption and you have a scheduled meeting with a client? How would you explain this kind of situation? Jomari, over to you.
And bottom line is, we just have to accept that that's the reality. You apologize. You try to reset the schedule to another time that is where he's available. It's something that's really not within your control.
Okay. All right.
By the way, it's not limited to power interruptions. My internet crashed.
That's right. That's right. So, yep. Well, we had a downpour 2 weeks ago and power was out, so all Zoom meetings were canceled.
Right.
Jomari, here's another one for you. In the virtual world, how do you seal deals? In the past, we used signatures on proposals and offers, sales orders, and handshakes. Do digital signature work nowadays? And related questions to that, Jomari.
Short answer, yes. There are a lot of tools available today. I'll give you one example. Adobe has a virtual signature system where you can send a proposal, and if the customer agrees to it, just clicks on a button and it can put his digital signature in.
Okay.
Secondly, you can use email. Email as, this is to confirm, please respond to this email. Click forward so that the email thread is attached and say, I approve this or I support this. And then afterwards, you still need to send the formal contracts, the formal invoices. That still needs to be done.
Okay. Yes. So some things won't change, Jomari.
No.
Okay, Jomari, here's an interesting question. In the new normal, how do we get the attention of an uninterested client?
Well, the question that you ask is, why is he not interested? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to sell something that doesn't make any sense to him? You need to understand where your customer is coming from. Because if your customer has a need, he will actually welcome your call.
Mhm.
But if he doesn't have a need, or if you think he needs it, but he's still not convinced that he needs it, then you have to find a way to communicate that. You could communicate it with maybe an email with some information, or go back to anecdotes. Talk about a story, talk about a person who went through something similar to what this prospect is going through and how he was able to solve his problem. And then you follow up with, would you like to learn more about this?
All right. We hope that that answers the question. And we have a couple more. Let me just read off second to the last one so far, Jomari. We need your crystal ball for this one. What do you think the changes in the pipeline on getting leads today?
There aren't any changes. It's exactly the same thing. It's
Uh-huh.
just the methodology that changed, right? In fact, I will tell you that for the building a pipeline, it is actually easier in a virtual world because you actually have more time. First of all, you don't spend hours being stuck in traffic and finding parking. Just try to imagine if you used to spend, let's say, 3 hours getting stuck in traffic. Those 3 hours are 3 productive hours
Mhm.
that you can spend online, sending out emails, sending out messages, reaching out to customers and prospects. It is actually a benefit. And I hate to say this, in the last 90 days, um, I was actually surprised. The first 2 weeks, he was dead in the water. There's nothing happening. But after the first 2 weeks, I was actually surprised. And I talked to a lot of friends, and a lot of my friends are actually saying, I'm actually working more now. I'm actually working longer hours. So look at it as a positive.
Okay. Okay. Jomari, a question has been asked. Would you advise using text blasts?
No, absolutely not. Remember, I kept focusing on the fact that it is a personal relationship with your customer. Your customer knows that it's a text blast. Your customer knows that it's an email blast. If you ask yourself, do you like receiving text blasts? Do you like receiving email blasts? And if the answer is no, then why are you going to do that to your customers?
Okay. Okay. Jomari, a question that has been asked here is from someone from the education field who says not necessarily in the business sector, but would like to get some tips from you on how this topic, which is business development and relationship management, can help them in that particular sector, in their endeavors in the education sector.
You know, everything that I talked about today is very universal. You can even apply it to your personal life, right? Dealing with another person. And bottom line is, you develop a relationship, you make sure that you show enough interest in the other person, and then you work on that interest. So, for example, in the education field, it could be your fellow professors, or uh, even your students, right? I mean, it's especially in this quarantine scenario, people are reaching out. Remember, I think there was a special on television just the other day where the focus has been on mental health, how people
Mhm.
are getting affected mentally because of this quarantine. And just think about it. If you happen to be living in a 26 square meter condo, you'd really be going crazy, right?
Mhm.
Because you can't even go to the common areas because it's not allowed.
Right.
So you use technology, use email, text, Facebook, social media, whatever, to reach out to other people and communicate with other people. And you'll find that again, the funny thing is that, I had at least 3 conversations. Um, 3 I use this opportunity to reach out to people that I have not been in touch with in a while. And in 3 of those conversations, the reaction was, oh, so what do you do now? I actually closed 2 deals, 2 consulting gigs because of that. The call was initiated not because I was looking for work. It was more of, hey, how are you? How are you doing? But in the process of the conversation, because I had developed that relationship with that person in the past, now this person is saying, oh, okay, can you do this for me? So it helps.
Okay.
So keep looking at this as a positive thing. It's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. It can be applied in just about everything and every aspect of one's life.
Even in your love life.
Okay.
But let's not go there.
We'll move on to the next question then, Jomari. Jomari, a question that I had thought of is that in the days of old and even today or pre-COVID, which is much more recently, we recognize that in complex solutions selling, for instance, we know that there are people who we call or categorize them as the decision makers, the decision influencers, and sometimes the product users. So they may not necessarily be the decision makers or the decision influencers, but certainly they are those who will benefit most from a product that works appropriately for their use or requirement. So how do you apply some of these tools and techniques that you have just talked about when you look at a web of different types of influencers and decision makers in an organization now that it's all virtual?
Actually, it's easier because it's easier to reach out to the user, to the decision maker, and to the influencer via email, via calls. Again, just think of 3 hours that you did not waste on traffic. That's 3 hours of opportunity that you can reach out to these people. The users are very important because they will be the ones to confirm that what you're selling is exactly what they need in their organization.
Mm-hmm.
The influencer will eventually check out with the users, what is this guy selling and will it help us? And by the time you get to the decision making, you've done your homework. It gives you the opportunity to do that. In a face-to-face scenario, easily it's 3 or 4 visits to the customer's location before you can even get that kind of a conversation. Sometimes in this virtual world, sometimes in 2-3 days, you're able to do this. The best part is a lot of these things, you can actually even demo online. You can demo virtually. So you can even show it. And if you have a video, it's easy to show the video online or virtually. Again, in a face-to-face scenario, you're in a meeting, it's so sometimes difficult to show a video. But here you've got a captive audience that you can really catch on. But again, it goes back to that. Is the customer thinking, is he wasting my time?
Yep. Okay.
Or is it worth listening to that person?
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Jomari. Jomari, here's a follow-up question. I think in the education sector still, how do you sell online learning to parents so that they will enroll their children? It seems that technology is hard for parents to accept and having to teach their children.
That's an excellent question. I think that there's several layers. Number one, the first layer, again, is the technology part. And as was discussed yesterday on television, right? And you go to the provinces and they don't have internet connectivity. How can you even how can you even engage in an online learning conversation when you don't have that platform? Okay. Now, those that do have that platform, in the traditional world, we call it a demo. Do a demo. Show them how it's done. And then testimonials. Show data on how it works. It's interesting because what a lot of parents don't realize is that the work will never go away. The work of educating your kids never goes away. Formal education in the past gave parents, But it gave some parents an excuse to not be a parent because the second parent takes care of their kids. Online learning forces you into being a parent again.
Could be a good thing, but probably something that parents need to get accustomed to once again.
So it may not be as easy a sell as
That's right.
you would hope it to be.
Jomari, I think we only have time for one question. So if you allow me, I can ask you to just be crisp in your response, but this is, I think, a question up your alley. If commercial or industrial establishments such as malls, hotels, manufacturing is one of your target markets, would you recommend still pursuing them this year, given that they are most badly hit by the pandemic?
If your solution of what you're selling is going to help them cope with what they're facing right now, absolutely yes. I mean, I know somebody, for example, whose business right now is producing all these stickers that you put on the floor to show social distancing, and he's making a killing. So you do have to make sure that, okay, I understand where they're coming from. Now, is my solution something that will help them?
Okay. Jomari, thank you very much for such an enlightening, empowering, and a very educational webinar for today. So from wherever you are, have a good day, a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much. Goodbye.